So today I went out to defy all odds. Everybody says that the 24mm Canon Pancake f2.8 lens can't be used for video filmmaking, and I think I kind of proved that wrong in the cinematic that you guys just watched. So today the only lens I used was the Canon 24mm Pancake lens to do video, because it's the only lens I currently have that can get an aperture value of f2.8. If I could change one thing about today is I would have took a lot more shots than I did, but the rain was starting to creep in on us and my car was a pretty good distance away from where we were actually filming, and you know, I didn't want to risk my camera equipment dying because of the rain that just kind of popped up all of a sudden. So I want to show you guys exactly how I slowed this footage down, as well as how I got the stabilization, and kind of give you guys an idea of how to get that smooth cinematic footage. If you're using this same lens and the camera that I'm using, it's actually very easy. But before we do jump into the computer part of the editing, I want to tell you guys that as steady as you could possibly be, by the way, this was all handheld, so the more steady you are with your own hands, the better it's going to make the post-process editing. But essentially all I did was have my neck strap on. I just pulled the camera out until there was enough tension between my neck and my hands, and I kept my elbows locked in at my sides. So when I was making these pan shots or even moving forward, I was moving my whole body. It wasn't just my arms moving. So that way, myself and the camera almost became one as we made these pans and as we moved forward and backward. Now, some of the shots that are a little bit closer to the edge of the ground, obviously I can't move exactly like that, so I got into this weird little stance, and kind of like a power stance like a rock star would take, and then you just kind of move your body with it. So your whole body is moving on your legs. So again, your arms aren't the things that are moving. And the more stable you can be in those processes, the better it's going to be when you slow down the footage and use the stabilization. But without further ado, let's hop over to the computer and finish the rest of this video. Okay, so now that I'm at the computer, I do remember that I failed to mention that when you're recording your in-camera settings, you need to make sure you have at least 60 frames per second set as your film speed, or 120. That's even better. But if you're shooting a Canon 70D, 720p at 60 frames a second is the best you can get for this slow motion. And you always want to make sure that your shutter speed is exactly double whatever your frames per second is. So for in my instance, I was shooting at 60 frames a second, so I put my shutter speed somewhere around 120, 125. That's what works best. So go ahead and get those settings before you go and film this stuff. There's nothing like going and filming all this amazing stuff to come home and figure that your camera settings were off, and then you can't do the edits as precisely as we would like. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a brand new project really quickly so I don't mess up my other edit here, and I'm just going to call this the tutorial, and we want to set this at 1080p HD at 23.98 frames a second. That's good. So we're just going to click OK. And then down here in my timeline, I'm just going to grab one of my clips. This is actually one of my favorite because this little water drop that goes off. And I'm just going to delete the sound really quickly. But let's cut over and I'll show you what this clip looks like. So let's clean up our workspace really quickly. And okay, so now that we can see this more clearly, this is 60 frames a second with a shutter speed of 120. This is full speed. This is exactly how it's recorded. And you can see that it's kind of choppy and it's just really weird, okay? So you want to slow this down. If you're shooting in 60 frames or higher, you want to slow down your footage. And the way that I go about this is I just click on my clip. You'll click on this little speedometer here, and then I actually just click on, let's see here, automatic speed works best. And what that's going to do is set the speed according to the frames per second and the shutter speed you were using. In this case, for me, it's 40% as a speed adjustment. So now you can see that as this thing pans across, it's a heck of a lot smoother than it was before we applied this speed adjustment. So what I'm going to do is actually cut this clip. I'm going to do Command B to cut there. I'm going to delete that part. And then I'm only going to save maybe about 5 seconds or so of this just as we're panning over. That's for the sake of the time of what we're about to do. So once you have your clip selected, you can see that there is still a little bit of camera shake and everything. Again, I wasn't using a gimbal. This was all handheld. So what we're going to do is apply a simple little effect, and it's this stabilization effect. And what it's going to do is analyze for the dominant motion. So it's going to choose a point here where the motion is more obsolete, and it's going to kind of trim down the clip so that way it doesn't move as much around the edges and everything. I know that might sound a little weird, but I'll show you what I'm talking about as soon as this thing gets... So now, you know, it's giving you the appearance that we are almost on a gimbal. There's really nothing wrong with this footage. It's almost exactly perfect. And what I do with my stabilization method, I actually just leave it set to automatic, and the smoothing I leave on 1, and it works perfectly. And that's all I did with my clips to get the cinematic that you guys saw at the beginning. I didn't do anything else extra special. I didn't have thousands of dollars worth of equipment. I was literally using my camera, the Pancake lens, really slow controlled hand movements, and then I slowed down the clip in Final Cut, and then I just added some stabilization. So I'd like to say thank you guys for tuning in today. If you learned a little something, be sure to leave a thumbs up. If you're new to this channel and you haven't yet subscribed, highly recommend you do so to stay up to date with latest videos on photography and videography. Also, if you guys would like to see more cinematic videos, you know, without tutorials or anything involved, just cool cinematics, go ahead and leave some comments in the comment section below, because I'm really looking forward to make some of those as soon as this rain stops and the snow. We get some beautiful weather going. I have some amazing places to show you guys. But that pretty much sums up today's video, and as always, be sure to create something new today.